got a commission to do a painting of a dragon. And so to do a painting of the dragon, I spoke about this a few weeks ago. What he did, Da Vinci, it's actually written down in contemporary letters and things of that sort. He got a possum because he wanted like those scary teeth of the possum. He got a chicken because he liked like the chicken's legs. He got a snake and he used the tail of the snake. He got all these different animals and he set them up in his studio in order to paint the dragon. So he kind of like amalgamated, which means mixed together, all the different parts. So the teeth of the possum, the tail of the snake, and he put it into this amazing painting that he did on top of a shield. But the people who were his contemporaries, they said his studio stunk so bad that it was just like a horror, and like nobody could understand how he could bear the awful smell. Okay, I think we have most everyone on here. I usually like to wait a few minutes. Yeah, we just had a few more people jump on. So let's jump right into our lesson. So I was going to try to get for you guys today, I wanted to get for you a real reptile. Problem is I don't own any reptiles, and so I was like asking around and it was difficult to pull off. So we're going to be jumping on Wikimedia to draw a reptile today. We have drawn lizards in the past. We did it like I think like a year ago or something like that. And so we're going back to a particular type of lizard that's found in it's in areas in the Middle East, like in the Jordan Desert. So I want to start with the bones of this creature, and I want to work with like kind of like building the thing from the inside out. So I'm going to take us over to it's a kind of like a schematic drawing, which means like a simplified drawing of the bones of like, let's say like a lizard. And then I also have with me today my buddy over here. So say hello. And so there is my friend, and I use him in a lot of my teaching when I teach drawing. And when I have a skeleton, the skeleton actually teaches me how my hands move, how any of us move. We're going to be doing a similar thing when we work with the lizard. So let's jump right over to the demo. So, whoops, here we are. So this right here, I always like to give credit. So the author of this, his name is Red Natters, and he did like this really great blow up. And so I wanted to start today in talking about the lizard's bones. And then in talking about the lizard's bones, I wanted to do kind of like a comparative drawing. We're going to do this pretty quick. We're not going to spend the whole class on it, but we're going to do a comparative drawing between the actual anatomy of a lizard and the anatomy of a human. So it's crazy how God made us, where there's all these comparative elements where we have an upper arm, we have a shoulder, we have like a collarbone, and there's so many animals that are just so unbelievably different than us. And these animals that are so different than us actually have a similar anatomy. I mean, I find it to be incredible. So take a look at this lizard that we're eventually going to draw in a little bit. So this lizard this guy looks like he is Spider-Man. I mean, doesn't he look like Spider-Man? Like kind of like crouching, like, and he's like on the side of a building. So like, I mean, just look at him. To me, cover up with your hand, cover up his body, and cover up his face, and just look at his body and check out how much that looks like a man crouching in a lizard suit. So I think it's pretty funny. I have to give the guy credit who took this photo. It's an amazing photo. So let's go down. I always like to do this. And this is by Esther Inbar. So it's always good to give an artist credit when you're using their image, and it's allowed on Wikimedia. So with that, let's jump right in. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be jumping back to our lizard bones. And to jump back to the lizard bones, we're going to do like kind of a quick schematic. Let's say we could do it over here on like the upper part, and then we're going to do our bigger drawing down here. So I'm not going to make this detailed. I'm going to keep this very cartoony. So this is the skull right here. It's just basically an oval. We're going to do a huge, huge eye cavity because lizards have amazingly big eyes. And then like his mouth is going to kind of be like this long, just kind of slice. We're never going to go into real detail. You could do an amazingly detailed drawing of a lizard, but that's just not the purpose of today's lesson. So, okay, I have that skull mapped out, Now I'm going to take my arm, and you guys remember how when we're going to do a big broad line, when we're going like, let's say left to right, we want to be like conductors of an orchestra. So the conductor of an orchestra has all these fluid movements, and everything is kind of like in an S curve. In the same way, it's actually interesting, guys who I'm friends with who are really into martial arts, their movements almost have like this like fluidity to them. That's how they're able to beat someone like me up. They just know how to move their body. When you draw, you want to be able to go like this. So hold your pencil in the air and practice this and do like a figure 8 in the air like that. It might seem really silly. You might be like, come on, I want to draw. But I'm telling you that it's really important to loosen your arm up and then to go, okay, we're going to get his back and then his tail and that's it. And if you don't hit it the first time, you can always take your eraser and you can just go like this. You just try to hit it like a few times and there. That's pretty good for me. If I tighten up on that, then the thing's gonna look like all like sharp angles. I want to keep it very loose. Okay, so we have our model up here, and okay, so someone's asking for me to make the bone picture bigger. If you give me 1 second, I'm gonna hop over and I'm gonna make that bigger. It just takes me just a minute. And there we are. How's that for bigger bone picture? Does that work well? All right. So cool. There we have it. And okay, so now I'm back over to the basic body. The rib cage is going to be just kind of like another oval right here. Then the upper arm, so this is kind of like, in a way, like his shoulder. It's just going to be like a bone that just like is shaped almost like a cube, something like that. And so that is almost like, I'm sorry, that's his upper arm. And then right here, we would have, let me see, this would be his elbow. And then we're going to have another set of bones coming down right here. And that's going to be his hand, like his wrist. So somebody's asking if also you could think of it as being a cylinder. Absolutely. You could see any of these as being cylinders or cubes. Really, don't feel any pressure whenever I come up with a description of a bone or like a limb or something. If you choose to see it as being a cylinder rather than a cube, that's absolutely valid. It's the choice of the artist. Because what we're really just doing is we're trying to simplify things so that we can figure it out. All right, so now we're going to go down to the hip. So this is like the pelvis right here. And maybe I got it a little bit too scribbly. So I'm going to kind of like simplify that somewhat. That's like his pelvis. So I think it's important for us to now shoot over, take a look at our skeleton. And so for our skeleton, what we're doing is, it's as if we're drawing this guy bent over like that. And then we did the upper arm, we did the elbow, and then he has these really, really long fingers coming out like that, the lizard. Then we did the rib cage, and now we're up to the pelvis. So this is the pelvis down here. And all of your leg muscles, everything connects to that pelvis. And that's what gives you the ability to have like power as you walk or as you run. So we're at the pelvis right here, and then this is his, what on the human anatomy we call the femur. So this is the big upper bone of his leg. These are the two lower bones. So interestingly, we have an upper bone right here called the femur, and then we have two lower bones called the tibia and the fibula. And he has the same thing. He has two bones down here. And then he has this ankle right there. And then after his ankle, he has all these long, like little bones over here. So maybe it's like a little bit too long. Maybe it's a little bit shorter. But that gives him like a springboard to like jump off of. So okay, let's go back to this leg right here. Again, we're on the upper leg. This would be considered to be like his knee right here, and it comes off like that. And then we have like almost as if he has his foot coming off of here, like a human foot. He has the same thing. He just has all these toes right there. Now we're going to give him what we humans do not have. We're going to give him a tail. And we do have the end of our vertebrae curves into our pelvis, but the vertebrae keep on going down like that. I don't even know to tell you the truth, if I'm using the correct word when it comes to the tail, but it works because we're doing a comparative thing. So pretty much like that right there is the anatomy of a lizard that is like running. What is kind of cool is we can now do a similar study on our own drawing, but we could do it of a human. So rather than doing it like a big one like this, let's maybe do like a scaled down version over here. And let's turn this into a human who's running, and he's like really tilted forward. So I'm gonna start out with a human skull, and we're gonna keep it like a stick figure, man. We're not gonna try to do this like we're doing, highly rendered, anatomically accurate. We're just trying to think of how God created the amazing skeletal framework to give his creatures power. So this is like a human who's running forward at full tilt. This would be our shoulder right here. And then let's say, okay, our shoulder it comes down like that. And then there's our arm. And then let's say we're running with our wrist tight. So as I do this, I'm thinking of like a person who's like running like this, and he's got like his arm down like that and then tight. All right, cool. So I'm gonna keep the picture, the blowout picture, off for a moment, and we're just gonna kind of compare these two. And I'm just making this up as I talk to you. I haven't like rehearsed this drawing of the human, but there's the human's pelvis right here. We're gonna waste out a room for the leg. That doesn't matter. We don't need like a fully fleshed out drawing. But there's the leg right here, and there's the foot would be down here. Then I'm gonna put his other foot splaying out behind. And then we have the ankle. So again, we're right here. And then we would have our foot sticking out like so. If you want, you could put, instead of having the other arm drop down here, usually we run with one arm back, one arm forward. That's how we like generate momentum. So that's like a drawing of a human in like a full tilt run. So again, when I study things, I always like to think of like the engineering behind it. I don't want to just draw like the superficial surface of something, and I'm not trying to knock like other artists or anything like that, but there are plenty of artists who will take a picture of a man running, let's say a woman running, and they'll just copy how the photograph looks, but you can tell there isn't much understanding for how a human actually powers himself when the human is running. But if you can look at all the different creatures that God has created, like let's say like, why does an elephant have such an enormous pelvis? And why are his bones so thick? It's because he's like a truck, and he's got to transport a lot of weight around. So everything has to be big and heavy and thick. So then why does a horse have such long bones? Like what's the reason for a horse having such long bones compared to an elephant? Well, a horse is much more nimble, and it needs to really run quickly in order to like escape a predator, let's say. And so a horse is shaped differently. So like you can see the purpose behind every small little variation in the human anatomy and in the lizard's anatomy. So okay, with that, let's jump over to our image of a lizard, and I'm just going to blow this up to make it big. So there we have him big right there. And let's take a look at him. Again, he looks so much like Spider-Man to me if I cover up his face. And now we're going to jump back to our drawing. We're going to blow up the lizard right here. I'm just going to move this a little bit to the side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in just a tiny bit so that you can see my paper just a little bit bigger. And right about there, let me see how close I can get this. We're going to start our drawing of our lizard crouching. So, okay, we're going to try to think as best we can of this lizard as almost having the anatomy of a person. So I'm going to go I'm going to give him, let's say, a rib cage that's almost like a cube. So I'm going to think of this as being almost like a box. And the box is like projecting backwards, like so. And there is like almost like the human's upper body. And again, we need to think of our upper body. So if I'm like this and I'm like leaning towards you, it's best to think of the force of, you know, my position as being like a box coming towards us. Okay, then at the bottom of this, let's draw right beneath it a pelvis that's going to be more or less hidden, but that's going to be another box right there. So we have the upper, we have the lower, and I just like to think of them in separate terms, even though they're pretty close to each other. I like to separate it so that I know that the rib cage can pivot on top of the pelvis. All right, so what comes out of the pelvis? So the way to think, again, of anything in nature, you can draw the coolest dinosaurs just by understanding that a T-Rex is actually pretty closely engineered to a lizard. And if you understand human anatomy, so do you see this right here? This is the pelvis leading to the upper leg, the femur. And so we have this right here. This bone is called the great trochanter. This aspect of the bone is called the great trochanter. So as we go over to our drawing right here, we know that there's like at the pelvis, coming off of it will be a bone, and that is his femur. Just like that. And so you could just leave it just like a straight line for a moment. Coming off the other leg is the other femur, splayed really wide. So now I'm going to move my paper up just a tiny bit, just like so you can see the edge of the page. And now I'm going to draw the downward angle of the lower leg. It comes like that. Here is the downward angle of this leg right here. And okay, so I'm pretty happy with how this is all mapped out. I know that it looks like super weird and just like shapes, but trust me that when you think this way, you're going to be able to flesh it out and make it look really cool. So let's give this guy some legs coming off here. To do that, I'm just going to feather this. And on your paper, if you have overlapping drawings and you're concerned about like there's an overlap right here, I wouldn't worry about that. I think one of the coolest things about Leonardo da Vinci's journals is that he has multiple moments where drawings will overlap each other. And so when that happens, it's actually called a palimpsest. So that's like a fun new word for you guys. It's when you have multiple ideas overlapping the same space. Okay, so now we're up to the arms. So this guy literally has, when you look at his arms, you can see that he has shoulders right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a shoulder. It's going to kind of be a circle right here. And if you don't get any of these steps, the nice thing about drawing is that you'll have an image at the end of this. I do take all these live streams and I also upload them, like usually it's about an hour later. I'm done editing and I upload it to YouTube so you can go back on it. So if I'm going a little bit fast, I will try and slow it down. Thank you, Dylan, for writing that. And then also you'll have the still image to work off of. So I just want everyone to feel comfortable with the flow of things, and I also want people to feel challenged. So let's talk about our shoulder. So I want everyone to take your hand and go ahead and put it on your shoulder like that. Like feel the mass of your shoulder. That's called your deltoid. So I'm giving you a lot of terms today, and you could be like, I came on class today to draw a lizard, and you're confusing me with all these terms. But I think it's cool for you to know that you're working on something that scientists are really like obsessed with. In fact, the scientists who design robots. Has anyone on this call ever heard of Boston Dynamics? Anybody? So Boston Dynamics is a robot company, and they're designing these amazing robots. I have to be perfectly honest, they really scare me. But they're like these dogs that can like chase after something, and like they could jump over things. They're human robots that can flip. The things that they study is actually what you're studying right now. They study like pivot points and how all different things have different like ratios for like the anatomy. So this is the shoulder right here. Then there's going to be another shoulder right here. And then we're going to have the upper arm. So I'm going to just draw a line down for the upper arm, like that. And then this is the lower arm right here. So the lower arm is going to come down like that. Again, it looks like gibberish, but we're going to make sense of it pretty soon. His far arm right here, if you look at it, his far arm comes down all straight. And so if the far arm is like all completely straight like that, we're just going to make it one long straight arm. So one long straight arm right there. Boom. And so maybe some of you can see that we kind of have a stick figure working out here of, it feels like a stick figure of like a robot of some sort. Okay, so it's time for the head. The head is a triangle. So it's a triangle that has dimension to it. So to draw the head, we're going to draw a triangle coming off to the side. And a triangle to the side, if you have difficulty doing what I'm about to do, try to think of almost like the wedge of a pie. Almost as if there's like some kind of like a cheese wedge or something like that. And if you're having any difficulty, what I would recommend, if you're trying to do this wedge right here, what I'd recommend is jump to the side and do another drawing, like we could do it down here, of a triangular wedge. So you make a triangle like that. You draw two parallel sides down like that. And then you connect the bottom. So now you just made a dimensional triangle. All right, so we're past kind of like the confusing part. Now we can jump over and we can start turning this into a lizard. So let's start at the back of the neck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up the image of our, it's a really awesome photograph. I think the color of this is just incredible. I'm going to connect the back of his neck, and I'll pull up the image right here. And to do that, I'm also going to accommodate that image by moving my drawing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a little line down the back of the neck, like so. And then I'm going to do the hump of his back. Maybe what I'll do now is I'll jump over to the head, and you can take your eraser. So I have kneaded erasers and I keep them with me at all times, and you can just kind of like feather your drawing a little bit. I still leave some of the lines there, and then what I do is I kind of like almost put the finished idea of the head on top of it. So it's that triangular idea, but now I'm going to put in two mounds for the eyes. So the eyes are going to sit like right across from each other. And okay, so he's got a huge upper lip. I never get to see in the photo his lower lip. So his upper lip kind of like sits on top, and the lower lip kind of tucks underneath. So some of you might be thinking to yourself, like, hey, Mr. McEvoy, I was wondering if when we draw, we could just go straight to the lizard and skip all the shapes beneath it. But I think one of the most important things in all of drawing and painting is learning to see shapes in everything. So by raising your hand, are there any of you who are interested in sculpting at all? Anyone ever want to work with clay and stuff like that? Bronze work. So if I have my way, cool, there's a lot of you. I see a lot of hands raised. If I have my way, I will at some point in the next few years, I will be sculpting. I really wanted to sculpt years ago, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on drawing and painting. But one of my friends, he's a marble sculptor, and he does huge commissions, and he takes marble from the hills of Italy, and he's my really good friend, and he does these amazing commissions. And when he sculpts, everything he's doing is he's trying to see the basic shape that's at the core of whatever it is. And so my friends who are painters are all doing the same thing. They're always trying to see the simple shapes. So again, when I first started to paint, I actually thought to myself, sorry, just one moment. When I first started to paint, I actually thought to myself that I just wanted to focus on the detail, but I was getting lost too quickly. And then I was like, oh, you know what? These guys, these women who are teaching me, they really insist on the importance of overall shape. And I think that they're right. All right, so there is his lower eye, kind of his eyelid right there. We can put it in his nose. So the nose kind of sits like a little bit higher up, like so. All right, so now I'm going to sharpen my pencil. And when I sharpen my pencil, I just kind of like to show you that I have a board with sandpaper on it. And I just sharpen the pencil, and then I get it even sharper by using that sandpaper right there. Okay, so I'm back to that image. I'll take a long, hard look at this guy. Then I'll go like that. And I'm going to move on to his shoulder. Okay, so here is the outside of his deltoid. This is kind of like, this guy obviously works out and goes to the gym. He's got these jacked arms. He's a handsome lizard here. And this right here would be his bicep. So how many of you, I think you guys would be awkward on the call if I asked you to flex your muscles, but maybe some of you wouldn't. But if you go like this and you flex your muscle, just like feel the muscle, your bicep is what brings your arm up like that. So your bicep goes up and it lifts everything. And the muscles of your bicep actually insert into your arm right here. You can see the same thing on this lizard, which is so cool. Check out how, see the arm right there? There's a bicep that inserts in between. And the same way on our arm, we have a bicep and it goes like this and it inserts in between two muscle groups right here. So I just love studying stuff like that. It makes you so much better at drawing when you're able to like understand that. So, all right, so I got that arm kind of like built out there. I'm kind of like running out of room for his hand, which is not such a big deal. I'll just run it off the paper like that. And then I'm gonna jump back to the full body. All right, so now I'm gonna go to the other arm. As you work on this, you can start feathering out your under drawing. And okay, so this would be kind of like his chest muscles right here to his deltoid, his shoulder. Then again, here is that powerful upper arm. So whenever you're drawing something, one of the things I would encourage you to do is that try to think of why God designed this guy this way. Like, what is it, why is he built this way that he has such huge, powerful legs? Because not every creature has such big, powerful legs. Like, do ladybugs, I'm going to ask you a silly question. Do ladybugs have huge legs? Like, no, they don't, because when a ladybug's in trouble, I think they just pretty much split their covering in their back and they fly off. So that's how they quickly escape trouble. But when you look at this lizard, when this lizard has someone who's trying to take him, like, I don't really know what is the predator of a lizard. I'm assuming hawks are. So if a hawk is trying to take this guy, and like trying to swoop down and get him, this guy has to bolt really quick. So he needs a lot of incredible power stored up in those limbs. So he can push off and he can have explosive energy really quick. So as you're drawing him, try to think of that. Why does he have such huge back legs? So check this out, ready? For that back leg that we just had a line for, now we can turn it into this amazing, like, this guy is like a bodybuilder. He's got these huge, huge upper legs. And then here is the lower leg right there. And I'm sorry, the lower leg is right here. And then this is almost like his ankle. And then he's got these really gnarly clawed feet that we'll get to in just a little bit. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the other leg, the far leg, right here. And the far leg kind of continues on. It breaks through to the other side. And it kind of turns down like that. So I don't want to move too fast. I'm going to let you guys catch up with that. Probably all of you could use like a couple of minutes. So as you're working on like kind of like fleshing that out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the comparative anatomy that we had over here. When you see like a person who's crouched down this way, I think of Spider-Man like perched on the side of a building. You know that he's ready to launch off, that he has all this potential energy stored up in these limbs right here. So that's what I really want you to think of, is like the function of what these limbs are doing. Don't just try to capture a shape. Try to understand like the mind of the creator when he created this guy. All right, so if you guys are all caught up over here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to give him a tail. Now, I'm going to show you a little thing, and it's called artistic license. So how many of you guys have ever heard, raise your hand if you've heard of artistic license. Okay, so yeah, some of you have heard of it. So artistic license means when you go to the Department of Motor Vehicles and you get a driver's license, if you're an artist, they give you an artistic license. So that means you can drive any way you want to on the road, right? No, that's not what it means at all. I'm completely lying. I'm kidding with you. That is not an artistic license. Don't listen to me. Artistic license is when you're an artist and you're telling a story, but the story doesn't exactly line up visually with maybe how you want to present it. So you stray from it a little bit in order to heighten the elements of something. So I'm Irish. I'm just going to be very forward with you that my people, we take quite a bit of artistic license. So much so that whenever I tell a story, my wife always hits me in the chest in the middle of the story, and she's like, that's not how it happened. And she always corrects me because maybe I've been known to embellish the truth at times a wee little bit. So when I draw something, when I paint something, what I might do is, if there's a blue door and then there's like a beautiful reddish brown violin, I might make the blue of that blue door just a little bit bluer because it tells the story even better. Or if I was going to draw one of you guys and you come and you sit in my studio and you're like this, I might and you have your head tilted, well then you know what I might do? I might go like this, and I see some of you are on the call and your head is like that in your hand. I might go like this, and I might go and tilt it even a little bit more because it's kind of fun for the drawing. Artistic license is a really important thing. It seems like it's a tangent, but it's important because it all goes back to this whole idea of designing something in a cool way. So if you look at the image, the tail just kind of sticks off back like that. I don't think that's so great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give him like kind of a cooler tail, and instead of just like sticking off to the back, I'm going to make it come off the back like this. And then to do this, I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit, and then that tail is going to go like that, and it's just going to come right off to the back of him. I think that has a little bit more dramatic storytelling power. Again, we're going to go back to the image and look at how the tail just sticks off to the back. It doesn't really feel connected to his body. I kind of like that a little bit better. So you don't have to do that. The artistic license that I do is not the artistic license that all of you have to do. But I just want you to know that you can run with things, you can design things. You don't always have to be like totally subservient to the thing that's in front of you, but you can like kind of like finesse it so that visually it comes out better. And that was really what happened in the Renaissance. They took human anatomy, such as Michelangelo, and then they brought this idea of perfection to it that was even beyond the world we live in, and they took artistic license. All right, so jumping back to our drawing, I'm going to erase a lot of my construction lines from early on, and we're just going to get rid of those, minimize those a little bit. And so again, this guy looks like a bodybuilder, and he has these powerful limbs ready to go, ready to spring, and I'm going to give him light. So I'm going to pretend the sun is coming from, like, let's say like the sun's angle is coming from like right here. So maybe it's a light bulb and it's shining down like that. If that's the case, I'm going to jump over to my trusty graphite powder right here. I'm just going to grab some graphite powder and I'm just going to put it in my hands like so. And I'll go back to my drawing. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to shade the underside of him away from the light. So I say this in every class. If you don't have graphite powder, don't worry, because at this stage you might be like, oh no, I can't keep up with Kevin because he's using material that I don't use. You actually can get the exact same effect just by shading it steadily with your pencil. Like that. And by shading it steadily with your pencil, like so, you can then take your finger and kind of blend it that way. And so you can see you can get the same effect. I just like to show you graphite powder because graphite powder is a way of like accelerating the drawing quicker. We don't have to be quick as artists, I would never say that, but for a 45-minute live stream, it sure does help. So now I'm going to go over to the far leg right here. The lower part of this is going to be in shadow, like so. Then the underside of his tail is going to be in shadow because the light's coming from here and it's hitting his back. If I think of this right here as being an egg, and if you ever have questions about any of these things, if you go on my website, Classical Art at Home, you'll see that I teach you how to shade an egg just like this. Now here's the lower leg. The lower leg is going to go into shade like so. And there we have it. We have most of the body more or less like shaded in. If you want, you can even heighten the sense of shadow with this guy by doing something that's a little bit different. We don't always do this, but when you do a cast shadow that kind of like floats beneath him, then he feels like he's in the hot desert sun. So let's do a cast shadow right beneath him, and you can just go like that and put the cast shadow like as if it's right on the surface of the desert. Now I'm going to take my blending stick like that. Blending sticks, you can get a little bit more specific. Okay, so I have this all mapped out. With just a couple more minutes, I'm going to quickly put in like some like indications of his claws, his fingers, and they kind of like come down like that. It's going to be a little bit difficult for you to see. I'll try to zoom in on it slightly. There's another claw right here, another one coming off like that. Try to think of it as being fingers almost like splaying out. There's another claw right there. Then we'll go to the back leg is kind of like hidden back here, but I'll just kind of like put it out like so. And then he has these claws coming off. Think of it as if it was your feet, and yet at the end of your toes, you know, your parents asked you to clip your toenails for like 5 years straight and you kept saying no. So you have these crazy long toenails curled over. And you just say, no, I'm a lizard. This is why my toenails are this long. All right, so then you have toenails coming off like that. And the toenails really do look cool when you start to put them in. They start to like make the feet look like feet. And some funny things happen when you have I'm going to use the word palimpsest. I'm going to write it for you guys so you guys get a little bit of vocabulary. Palimpsest. And that's an overlapping of many different drawings in one paper. And when I have to do a professional drawing for a project, I keep everything very clean. But when I'm doing a fun series of drawings or something, I don't mind if there's a palimpsest of all different ideas visually occupying the same space. And with that, I more or less have my drawing. I will tell you something funny about working with graphite. When I have it in my hands, I go like that. I put my head in my hand like that, and almost always I go to get a coffee like around like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I have graphite clear across my face, and the person on the other side of the register is like, Kevin, you have a smudge of graphite powder like right across your face. So that's my life being an artist. So with that, I'd love to see your drawings. So we're right at the end of the time. Again, if I didn't get to you, my apologies, because I can't always pull up through Zoom. I can't always pull up the image big to see everyone. But please go ahead on the website, upload it, and I'll take a look at it on the website. You could do it by asking your mom and dad if you could photograph it with their phone, and then they can upload it, and then I'll show you my lizard. I'll probably work on it for a little while longer, and then I'll be able to see your lizards in more detail, and just put your name like nice and big on it. So with that, thank you guys so much. It was great having another week, and in the future, I will try and have a lizard or a reptile in the studio. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But I will see you next week at 2:30, and I'll talk to you then.